Yo, what's good, y'all? What's good? What's good? It's your boy Justin Henry here live. Justin Henry Show, baby. Justin Henry Show, baby. And listen, we got some shit to talk about, right? Like, obviously, Davante Adams has requested a trade. And so logistically, I think there's only a few ways this thing can work out. I saw a tweet earlier that said there's only a certain amount of teams that can acquire Davante Adams due to the salary cap. So that is something to note there. I'll have to get those teams up in just a second. But Davante Adams out on the Las Vegas Raiders, it seems like. And for me, we talked about it yesterday. I don't think there's any way possible Davante Adams goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, that's the number one spot everybody says. I just don't see that happening. A division rival, and you're making the champions, the former champions, that much stronger and helping them with the need. It doesn't make sense to me. But there's a few teams that have the amount of cap space to go get Davante Adams. So I'll talk about that real quick. The first one is the San Francisco 49ers, the Cleveland Browns, the New England Patriots, the Lions, the Raiders, obviously, the Commanders, the Cowboys, the Cardinals, the Jets, the Jags, the Packers, and the Titans. So when it comes to Davante Adams, I still think his value as like a wide receiver one is there. Like, no matter what, it's when he plays, he's a wide receiver one. And unless this thing drags on for weeks, I'd expect him to still contain that value for the rest of the year. The teams that don't make sense. Tennessee Titans don't have a quarterback, don't make sense. Green Bay Packers already have a lot of receivers. That one really doesn't make sense to me either. A reunion with the Packers doesn't make sense. Jacksonville doesn't make sense because they're 0-4. Pairing up with Trevor makes sense, but it doesn't make sense because they just drafted Brian Thomas, and they're a losing franchise right now. The Cardinals don't make sense because you draft Marvin. It doesn't feel like there's enough volume to go around for Davante Adams to come in there with Kyler Murray. I would say the Commanders don't make sense. You have a young up-and-coming team with Jaden Daniels, but you have Terry McLaurin. You have some other options there. Maybe that one does. Maybe. I just think of like throwing quarterback. That's what Davante's probably looking for right now. Maybe on the Commanders. Obviously, the Pats don't make sense with Drake May, Jacoby Brissett. That don't make sense at all. The Niners don't make sense. They have a ton of receivers already. That one doesn't make sense. And then the Browns really don't make sense with Deshaun Watson. It doesn't feel like Davante would want to go play with Deshaun Watson. So the teams to me that make sense, and I could be wrong on this. This is just speculation on my end. The teams that make sense for Davante Adams include the Detroit Lions, who already have a downfield guy in Jameson Williams, a slot guy in Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have a lot of weapons though, but they have the cap space to take him on. They're in position to win, to at least challenge for a Super Bowl. The Dallas Cowboys with CeeDee Lamb would probably love to get him additional help there on the outside. CeeDee commands a lot of work out of the slot. Would pair up very nicely there for Dak Prescott. You just paid him. You just paid CeeDee. Would be one of the top offenses in the league if you're able to get that done. And then the last one is obviously the New York Jets, a reunion with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Garrett Wilson has struggled a little bit at times because you got Mike Williams, you got Alan Lazard, but no real threat there on the outside to take away coverage from Garrett Wilson. So that also makes sense. So I think it comes down to either the Lions, the Cowboys, or the Jets. And which one of those teams is going to make a move for him? That's where I think it goes with Davante Adams. Now, it could be a whole lot of different scenarios, but for now, that's how I see this thing playing out, all right? So want to touch on that before I got into waivers. If you guys got questions about Davante Adams, what that means for the other teams, Jacoby Myers, to me, that means he's going to be at least a wide receiver 3 for the rest of the time, unless there's a receiver that comes on to the Raiders. And then when it comes to Trey Tucker, I think he has flex value at least through bye weeks until we see another receiver come onto this team. So bump up in value for Jacoby Myers, bump up in value for Trey Tucker until we see, and then Brock Bowers as well. Brock Bowers has entered the top 5 tight ends, and I think he stays there for the rest of the year, especially due to this circumstance. So unfortunately for y'all Raider fans out there, you're probably going to be losing a key piece. But for fantasy managers that have Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, expect a level up from all those guys this season, okay? Unless there's a receiver that comes, like if he goes to the Browns and Amari Cooper comes, or, you're trading away another top, maybe it's another receiver that's in exchange for Davante Adams. That's the only way I would see that thing playing out. All right, waiver wires. Let's get into them in just a minute here. Let me answer a few questions. TikTok, what's good? What's good? Drop your all thoughts on the on Davante Adams. Any rankings questions y'all got? It's here. What's up? Do we go after Davante Adams? Very good question here. I would go after Davante Adams. I think this is a good time to buy low on Davante Adams. You have AR, pick up Flacco just in case. Yes, if you have Anthony Richardson, the expectation is that he'll be available for this weekend. But just to make sure, Flacco would be a good addition to have. And if you could get like a T-Law, Darnold, then I'm not overly worried about it if they're widely available on free agency. I think T-Law has a good week this week. I think Darnold is the safe play, and Cousins is kind of a Flacco-ish type low, like lower ceiling. Flacco actually has a high ceiling. We saw that last year in Cleveland. Thinking of trading Adams for a running back, make sure we see what happens with this Adams thing. So before you trade away Davante Adams, before you trade him away, you might want to see what happens with this trade thing. Like if you're 0-4 and you don't want to wait a week or two, that's fine. But for Davante Adams, if you're going to trade him right now, what happens if he goes to a plush situation? Like if he goes to Dallas, it's wheels up for his value. Like it'll be tough for him and CD to both coexist at like top 10 levels, but he's going to have some explosive weeks. If he goes to a team like the Jets, Aaron Rodgers knows how to use Davante Adams. I'd be excited for his value. So it just depends on where he goes because he's the number one on most teams he goes to. I don't really see a whole lot of teams, especially on that list that I named, where he's the number one, where he's not the number one. I don't see very many teams like that. So if you're going to trade Davante Adams away, make sure you get enough value for it.